Hello, friends. This is John Connor III with episode 126 of Shadow and Flame with Magic, the podcast. And today we are going to review X-Men 97, Season 1's Episode 10. So let's get to it. Right. So this was Totter's is Extinction Part 3. It's 42 minutes long. Magneto does the previously on, or Cable. It might be Cable. During credits, we see that Morph and Xavier are doing some telepathy together. Xavier seeing Emma doing something in an elevator. The episode opens up with Xavier and Magneto. They're so young in here. Magneto makes a reference to how if someone could um, read minds, they'll most likely control minds, and it's like, oh, it's a lot more than just very likely. And then Xavier comes out to Magneto, who then hesitates, but then it also comes out. And then immediately I'm like, oh, this is going to contrast nicely with the present day. But turns out Xavier's just doing mind games. And then, and their scenes lasted so long where I started looking at the backgrounds and I'm just like, it just looks like generic paintings. And then we cut to the present, or yeah, to the present, or to the reality. And Logan just looks wrecked. And then Xavier's trying to overpower Magneto. And then we see that not only was Magneto in the previous episode fighting the X-Men, but he's maintaining the EMP pulse. And so Xavier shuts him down, and so all of a sudden the EMP's back, or it stops immediately. And then we see Silver Samurai, the Cameo King, and then we see Iron Man and Captain America. And we're just 7 minutes into the episode, and it's just going to go bonkers from here. As not only do we see those two, and Iron Man looks straight up from the 90s cartoon series, so incredible and invincible. And then we see Daredevil, who looks amazing, straight from the Fantastic Four episode. And then we see Doctor Strange, or Doctor Strange doctoring, but with magic, so it's like, all right. And then we see Val Cooper's hung up in the Magneto position, but fully dressed, so maybe it's a gender thing. But either way, the Magneto being stripped down was a choice. And then we start seeing all the Prime Sentinels start waking up. So once again, Xavier has chosen humanity over mutants. And then we see Jean is inside the bay because she loves a water moment. Bastion's just monologuing. We see the Sentinels have Forge, Storm, Beast, and Morph captured. And then Bastion breaks the mental head thingy. And then Bastion just knocks Beast out and like leaves like a bruised, bloody mess on Beast's head. So it's like, oh, this is definitely going to be an episode where anything can happen. And then Bastion just gives himself a huge upgrade, so then he looks just like the his second coming with the giant wings. And then he grabs Storm by the neck, and it's immediately like, hey, you don't put your hands on Storm. Like, you're not going to survive this, pal. And then we see Black Panther, but it's T'Challa's father, which apparently people online is like, are we not allowed to use T'Challa in um, media now? Like, come on. Which once Boseman's wife said we wouldn't mind him being recast. Black Panther is a like culture phenomenon and icon for the community, for all communities. I've been like, yeah, like once she said they could recast him, sounds like you can recast him. But now we're committed, so um. Though I did read some people being like, well, if this is trying to connect to the MCU in the 90s, then this guy would be the Black Panther at the moment. So I was like, oh yeah, I guess so. Like you make the mental gymnastics work, and I'll report on it later. Oh, and then we get Cloak and Dagger. which I like how this show is clearly not for kids anymore. But Cloak, no, I'm sorry, but Dagger is because usually if you see her outfit, where the dagger is usually a big hole in her shirt, and here they decided to cover it up, which I'm like, well, that's a choice the comics have never made. Oh, and I'm pretty much reading this straight from my Twitter account, Jackal SIII. So feel free to follow if you like X-Men content in real time. And then we see the Winter Guard, which includes Dark Star and Omega Red and Crimson Dynamo. We cut over to Alpha Flight with Gal Pal Psylocke and Cypher with an I. Um, so I think it's Alpha Flight if it counts Puck and the twins, North Star and Aurora. We get back over to Bastion and Cable, who Cable admits that he's done this 200 times and he just can never get as far as he ever does. And Theo James just is really bringing it for Bastion, and I don't know, it just needs to be referenced that, yeah, he's doing an amazing job. And then we see a bunch of birds, and then we see a big bird, but not that big bird. It's the Phoenix, y'all, but like Aqua Phoenix. And Storm laughs, and it's incredible as her sister Jean is not here to mess around. And this should be over soon, which is just like how Fall of X is working out, where it's like, yeah, Orcus is going to win until the mutants start actually coming together. And then your days are numbered, and then their numbered days were numbered. Um, and then we see Cap and Iron Man are watching over President Kelly. And by watching him, I mean literally are just like staring at him as stuff is happening to Kelly. Oh, yeah. Then they ask Xavier what he's. Oh, no, 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 Jean. She's like, what do you think? And Jean says, all I do is think. And it's such a great line because that is what she does. And then she saps Sinister of all of his youth, I guess is what happens. And we see old man Sinister. And hopefully that's the last of him we see. And then Sinister, instead of looking in the water to get his reflection, asks Morph to show him his reflection. And Morph doesn't miss a beat to be like, this is what you look like. He's like, ah. But it does give Morph something to do, so sure. And then the Phoenix Force has done her cool moment and just is like, I'm done for the day, and clocks out, and she's gone. And Jean calls Cable her son, and Cable doesn't correct her at all. And then Bastion somehow knocks everyone down, and then he just rips off Cable's arm and just starts beating Cable with it. Hit the metal arm. It would have been intense if it was his human arm. Oh yeah, and then Bastion says it took him 4,621 seconds to destroy Genosha. And then we cut over to Xavier, who has mind ripe Magneto, and just proves that he's a horrible teacher. Um, oh yeah, and it's interesting because in the X-Men 25, Volume 2, Jean was there to keep Logan's body together, but this time she's still on Earth and they're in space, so she's not even aware of what's going on. So Logan's just keeping himself together by sheer keeping himself together. Oh, and also she was keeping his mind together too, so he's just on his own. Oh yeah, and then we see Scott telling Logan that he's the best at what he does, which is just sweet. And he says what he's best at is healing, so it's like, do your job. And then Xavier is the worst because he interrupts a private mind link as Scott was talking to Jean. And Scott's just wearing his classic, you know, condom head outfit. And I love it though. It works. And then Bastion comes up to the space station and Kurt starts fighting him. And this whole time I'm just like, please, oh please, let's keep Bastion's hand out of Kurt. And then I don't let out a breath until Bastion gets sucked into that space, the hole in space, so like that bright light he goes into. And Birdo fumbles with Jubilee, but she gets what he's trying to get at. And then Rogue punches Bastion and says, you killed Remy, remember it, which is awesome because I do love a callback. And then it's just a cool moment because Rogue can actually just punch with abandonment, and so she just wails on him. And then Sunspot shows up to save Rogue. The Black Panthers meeting with President Kelly. Cap has his mask off, so making budgetary choices here. And President Kelly, excuse me, gives the okay to use the Magneto protocols. And then they immediately um, send nuclear missiles to space. Oh, and we see a file that says Magneto's Omega, so that's two Omega mutants. In on the Mindscape, Magneto looks out into a boat in the water, and we see Wanda, Quicksilver, Lorna, and Rogue, which people have commented about how at one point Magneto could have picked up all those kids from school because they're all the same age, and that's just weird. Um, and Magneto remembers who he is. They reference being brothers, which is like, I don't think brothers mind wipe each other, but sure. And I find it ironic that Xavier's students never learn. Like, that's a great line. And then Bastion and Kurt fight again, where it's like, please, no, 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 no. And then the Gold Team finally show up in a Sentinel. Morph turn into Sauron for some reason. Oh, Beast references the Greeks loving a horse. And Brogue is so battered that she has a nosebleed. And Scott realizes that they should embrace the future, like some sort of mission statement. Um, and then the missiles hit the asteroid, and so then they're just dropping. But Kurt's alive. Beast has a plan if they all work together. Forge has saved Val, so they can start X Factor if they so choose. And Scott says goodbye to Cable, which is nice that Jean was able to establish a mind link for them. And then Scott got to say he loves Nathan, and then he gives a full optic blast with no visor on. The Newton Brothers have an epic version of the theme song that I would totally buy that and the slow down version of the theme song. So hopefully they add to the soundtrack that you can get on iTunes. Oh, and then we see Peter and Mary Jane. Mary Jane does not look like she's half aqua powered, and Peter's just in his actual good purple shirt, black jacket outfit. Um, but she's in that god awful yellow sweater with a purple turtleneck, where it's like I thought she likes fashion because they seem like they missed the point. Morph changes the gene to tell Logan that he loves him, so that's nice. And then Sunspot has brought Jubilee all the way down to Earth and right to where Forge is, so that's just nice. Kurt gives the last rites to Xavier and Magneto, and there's still 10 minutes left of the episode. Um, oh yeah, Kurt references the found family. Magneto's alive, so I have no idea what Plan B is at this moment. But Astro M implodes, and then we get a 6 months later after E Day. So I don't know what E Day stands for, but we start setting up season two, and we get a beautiful, or not beautiful, but an amazing, an uncanny X-Men 141 reference of a screen full of mutant headshots. But let's just go across it. So a Cyclops, Jean Grey, Storm, Beast, um, and they're all unaccounted for but presumed dead. Magneto, Nightcrawler, Jubilee, Sunspot. So main team right up top. And then Xavier, and then we get Scarlet Witch, Off-World, Colossus, Morph, Rogue, Dust, Angel, and then skip to the third one. Wolverine, Iceman, Havoc, Cable, who's missing, Exodus, and Quicksilver. And then on the second row, we have Magic next to Angel. And then on the third row, we have Emma Frost, but to the left of Emma Frost and to the right of Quicksilver, straight up in her Alan Davis, which isn't fair because John Romita Jr. in the John Romita Jr. Blue outfit that she will wear for the bulk of Excalibur is Shadowcat, y'all. She is established in here. She is accounted for. She's not off world. She's not presumed dead. She's just legit, just here. And I don't know. I wish there was a better mutant above her besides Angel or Archangel. But I love the theory going around that maybe her and Magic are just having gal pal adventures. And I would love that so much. But this is definitely my favorite episode of the season. I'll probably go this one, the Attack on Genosha 5, um, and then the Goblin Queen episode 3. And then from there, I don't care how you order it, but those would be my top three. Um, uh, but I can't believe Kitty Pryde's in this thing. And then we get Bishop comes into the room. He calls Forge Daniel, which I think shows up in a Claremont notepad at one point. Um, which I don't know if it's cool or not, but I saw like on Dr. J. Andrew Demand appreciated it, so I'm like, well, if he's cool with it, then I'll be cool with it. And then you go like, where's the X-Men? But a better question would be, when is the X-Men? That's right, y'all. Um, we see Egypt, 3000 BC, and we see Rogue is there, and she just starts wailing on Egyptians, which I can only imagine is going to cause a temporal accident. And Kurt's there too, and so is Beast and Xavier. And we see a very young Apocalypse. You can tell because he has the blue lips, the Apocalypse. Except I guess he's in Salbanor here. So he's the pre-Blue Daddy. And then we see Magneto's there too, so we're keeping Magneto and Xavier together. And then we flip the script, and now we're in the future of 3960 AD. And Scott calls for Jean, so she's there. And not only are they there, but Mother Escante's there. So Rachel Summers has shown up in this show twice. And in both her, I don't know, 20-year-old version self and now her in-game self of Mother Escante. And then not only that, but we get Teen Cable. And so we're straight up getting the adventures of Red and Slim. And I love that for them. And then you get like Madeline Pryor in Dark Web, where she wants Jean's memories back, and Jean just gives them to her. And Madeline's like, "Oh, I was expecting a fight." And Jean's like, "No, they're your memories of your son that I have. Please have your memories." And then poor Ben Riley wants his memories that for whatever reason he doesn't have, but Peter has, and Peter refuses to give them to him. And then Madeline gets what she hey everyone, there's gonna be a quick dark web aside. But and then Madden's like, I got what I want. Peace. And Ben Riley's just like, what about me? And then that crossover literally ends with Ben Riley Chasm not getting his memories back and but like stuck in limbo prison. And that doesn't seem so fair. Like Gene couldn't have been like, hey, let's figure this out. But I guess that's when it happens when you're in an X-Men event that you attach Spider-Man to. But it was fun that Marvel's two most famous clones got a crossover, and it wasn't too bad. Ileana's in it for the X-Men part, and then she shows up in an Amazing Spider-Man issue, but just on the first page, and then it's like, ugh, none of this matters. Um, oh yeah, and then Beast gives a oh dear as he recognizes Apocalypse, or in Sabonor. And so hopefully we don't have to wait years for season two. I think the current rumor is to 2025. So next year, that'd be fun. And hopefully we get 20 episodes or at least 12. Like it's at least increase it from 10. Like anything above 10 is a victory. Oh, and then we get a post-credit scene, and it's present day Genosha, and it's Apocalypse, Blue Dad himself, and he mentions how there's so much death, and he picks up a playing card, which has now the internet thinking that he's going to bring Gambit back as the Horseman of Death. So that'd be interesting. And then the cast, Ross Marquand does the voice of Professor X and Apocalypse, and I find that interesting. I wonder if that's just, he was in the booth like, hey, can you say 3 words? And he's like, sure. Which, if you listen to Batman, the animated series, you hear that legend Kevin Conroy ever so often does bit characters, but they all have like a Kevin Conroy accent to them. Where I'm like, oh no, that's clearly Kevin just being like, sure, I'll do a voice. I'll be the helicopter pilot. And I had to have this pointed out to me, but Mother Ascani is voiced by Gates McFadden, who, of course, is Dr. Crusher from Star Trek Next Generation. So that's pretty awesome. And then Matthew Watterson was Magneto in War Leader 1. Jennifer Hale was Jean Grey in War Leader 3. So, that's a happening. Isaac Robinson Smith was both Bishop and King Chaka. Um, oh yeah, JP Carlock was Morph Radio Jockey in World Leader 2. And, oh yeah, and then, a different voice actor was in Salbanor, so I don't know why he couldn't do both. It's Adi Takomba and Cormac. I butchered that, I'm sorry. Um, oh yeah, and then we get the thank yous, and disappointingly, this was not just all the names listed all at once. So Paul Smith isn't thanked, which makes me think he was only included for the Morlocks. And so this is to give their due. Kevin. X-Men created by Stanley and Jack Kirby. Special thanks to I should turn this tab sideways. To Carl Boilers, Sal Buscema, Chris Claremont, Dave Cockrum, Jerry Conway, Marvin Eglin, Pascal Ferry, Michael Godin, Butch Geist, Michael Higgins, Andy Kubert, Jim Lee, Rob Liefeld, Scott Lobdell, Joe Madureira, Bob McLeod, Fabian Nicieza, Phil Noto, Carlos Pochalo, John Romita Jr., John Romita Sr., Werner Roth, Steve Seagal, Mark Silvestri, Louise Simonson, Tom Sutton, Roy Thomas, Herb Trimby, and Lean Nguyen. Which Mark Silvestri reminds me that I read the Outback era in like a matter of like 2 days. And was like, people love this, and people do. They love the Outback. And I'm just like, I mean, it's good, but as an Excalibur guy, I was just like, it's all right. But good to read though, because I read pages, I've read issues here and there, but I don't think I've ever read it like beginning to end. I was like, yeah, and the Madden prior of it all. Um, and then I lost my place. Oh yeah, so now I'm wondering, is Shadowcat going to be in this? Is she going to be big? Are we going to just get one episode with her? But one would think they're not going to set up all this time travel nonsense. So in my mind, we're going to get each episode broken into 3 parts where it'd be present day. Ugh, why did I start with present day? So you have ancient Egypt, present day, future, and that's just how you call them. That's Dibs the rules. And the present day will have to be just like Forge reassembling a ad hoc Muir Island X-Men team, or does he call him X Factor? But or is Bishop and him going to be on a time traveling, and then we don't get any present day stuff? Oh, And of course, we don't have Storm accounted for, we don't have Morph accounted for, nor Logan. So where did they end up? Are they in the present? Because you imagine if they're in the present but missing for 6 months for a reason, and then they come across Kitty, Magic, and Emma. Like, what a perfect team that would be. Um, I just love the idea that Kitty and Ilyana are in this. Um, and so that was that. So let's see what comics came out last week. That's right. So Miss Marvel, Mutant Menace #3 came out, and we get some romance in there with Kamala Khan and Red Dagger as she fights zombie versions of Cyclops, Nightcrawler, Dazzler, and and Cannonball. And so it just felt like we were back on track from issue 1, because issue 2 they went to Mojo World, which I imagine was to tie into the previous week's episode of X-Men, which is how long it takes for some comic books to come out. And felt pretty solid, so that was nice. And then Ultimate X-Men 3 came out, where we get the origins of May. Um, and she apparently they just moved into their house. In a flashback, we learn, and her mother's insisting that her teenage daughter just visits the neighbor, and like really insists on it too, which is messed up. And then she, being a good daughter, like picks up the neighbor's cat and like comes to knock on the door, and we see the neighbor is the Shadow King person, or the shadowy figure, but makes me think the Shadow King. And the cat freaks out and bites May, or it's Mei, so me, May, maybe May. Um, and then May comes home, like passes out, and then wakes up hearing her parents fighting. Apparently, her father's cheating on her mother, which is unfortunate. But he's been sitting at the table like stone face, and May comes into the room and complaining about like them yelling woke her up, and her pronouns. Her father just stands up and like slaps her in the face and goes like, "I won't tolerate this nonsense in my home." And May rightfully like just loses it and unleashes her weather powers, knocking everyone down. And not only that, but turns her hair white. And then the father's like, "I can't do this," and just walks away. And in the present day, we see Armor and her on the field, um, and they meet Nico from Runaways, and then there's a girl next to her wearing a bunny ear cap, so that's clearly Molly, also from Runaways, Molly Hayes. And um, Nico looks at them and like, "Oh, you two mutants too?" And so it's just fun that we get the name mutants said in the comic. And so I don't know. I really dug it, and I feel like issue 3 really combated the pacing concerns they must have knew was going to be made, and uh, and I thought I addressed it all. But I guess some people are still like, it's still a little too late. Where I'm like, it's only issue 3. I think we're okay, everyone. And then real quick, Weapon X-Men 4 came out, and Magic did not show up in it, so nothing jumped out at me. Oh, and Wolverine Matterport Nights. I also didn't notice any new X-Men characters showing up in it. But the big issue of the week was X-Men Forever 4, um, which opens, which had some highlights, but also some lowlights. Um, but it ends the series, or the mini in an interesting way. But Destiny and, oh no, it opens up with Sinister, confronting Destiny about how they got to keep working together, which has been a ongoing conversation they keep having. But and Destiny has PTSD from losing Mystique and all these visions of hers, and he's like, you guys like live. And so Destiny comes into Mystique, who really doesn't want to talk to her, but Destiny reminds Mystique that if the world burns, the only thing left in the world would be Mystique's trust for Destiny, which makes Mystique, reunites her love for her. And so that we gotta hunt for Xavier. And they immediately just find Xavier. Destiny demands that he unlock her feelings for her son. And Xavier's like, I have no memory of what you talk about, but if that is a block, that I just have to do this. And he's like, oh, there was a block. And then she's immediately like, I want to go back to Earth. And so they teleport back down. Um, and Xavier is clearly a prisoner of Orcus. So it's like, oh, I thought you were having a partnership with them. But I guess they were like, we don't need you. You did the thing we needed, and now you're in a nice cell. Destiny comes down to Kurt. They have a big hug, so it's like, oh, they're doing it. And then they cut over to Hope, um, and Kurt gives Hope the Hope Sword, which is really Legion. Oh no, that happened last issue. Um, but now the Hope with Legion as a giant gun now because she's a daddy's girl is going to blow up the Phoenix to bring it back to life. Um, but before we do that, we go to Louise, Hope's mother, who is like the only time we've actually seen her alive, and it's in a flashback. And Kieran Gillen, I should mention, is the creator of Hope. And so, like what he says about Hope's origins is the origins. And so we see Louise, and she's being bothered by Nathaniel Axis with crown on his head, and mentions how he's going to um, assist with getting Louise pregnant because she's going to have a daughter who's going to be important. We're reminded that Louise was a firefighter, and she's also has red hair, and it makes me realize like, oh hey, Louise isn't that popular of a name. I wonder if she's named after Louise Simonson, because how fun would that be? Because there can only be one Louise, apparently in my mind. Um, but then Jean gets it together to go into because Hope's dying, and so all this is happening in Hope's mindscape. Um, and Jean is going to now and so she confronts Nathaniel Axis and says that he has no place here and he needs to just leave, and he's not scared of her. But then the Phoenix assists Jean, and then Nathaniel just goes away. And in a complicated choice, Jean says Nathaniel Axis isn't the father. In fact, the Phoenix is the father. So it's like, all right. And since Jean's the Phoenix, then I guess Jean Grey Phoenix is the father of Hope, which I can't imagine there's a notebook in Kieran Gillian's house that says, like back in Second Coming, like, baby is actually the child of the Phoenix and Louise Simonson. And Louise. We do get a sweet moment where Louise wants to know from Jean how Hope is, and Jean tells her like she's going to be the daughter you can be very proud of, and so that's just nice for any parent because unfortunately Louise dies in childbirth and never gets to actually see Hope. But it's just I don't know, like Hope's a complicated character already. Does she really need to be that tied to the Phoenix Force? But I guess she does. And so the issue ends with confirmation that Hope is dead, but also, and this is the irritating part, all the mutants in the white hot room with Jean leaving the White Hot Room herself, like there's no A name characters in that realm, and so they're just going to be abandoned there. And Kafka, the Teenage Mutant Turtle, but he's not a turtle. But in my head, I had to say it. And maybe you said it as well, or maybe you didn't. You're better than me. You probably are. And thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I really appreciate it. He says like, we don't need those Earth mutants. We're going to just make do here, and we're going to be the best we can be, which is empowering. But I really wish there was like an Iceman in the White Hot Room where a writer is going to want to be like, "Hey, I want to use Iceman." They're like, "Well, you can't. He's in the White Hot Room." Like, oh, is that still a thing? Fine. The White Hot Room expurges all the mutants, and now they're on Earth. Hey, everyone, problem solved. So instead, though, it's like all the unwanted mutants are now in the White Hot Room, including the five, even though they lost hope. But Egg, um, Proteus. Oh no, you're shouting the answers to me. Oh, Tempest and Egg, Proteus, Tempest, or Eva Bell, Hope. Who's the fifth one? Of course, how could I forget Ex Elixir, former purifier himself, who helps with all that. And so they're just going to be stuck there. And maybe someday someone will want to use them. Or hopefully, what really happens that From the Ashes has a 6 month gap where, plot happens and everyone's just out of there and it's fine. But most likely, that's not the case. But Nightcrawler knows that they're in there, and I find it hard to believe that he's not going to dedicate all of his attention or his spare time to be like, hey guys, we have to get them out of the White Hot Room. So, anyways, so those were the comics of last week, and so let's see what comics are out this week. And so let's see here. Blood Hunt 2 comes out, which I have like zero interest in, but tracking in case Magic shows up in it. Oh, I should mention now that X-Men 92 is over, I guess we're going to go back to proper comic book reviews. And then if there's nothing out in the week, I'm just going to do back issues again. So that'd be fun to get back into it. But that's not a worry this week, because this week gives us Fall of the House of X5, which promises to be the X-Men versus AI battle, which we still have Rise of the Powers of X5. So and then we still have X-Men 35, that secretly uncanny X-Men 700. So we'll see how all that plays out. Um, Scrolling down. Ultimate Black Panther 4 comes out, where Storm has a little bit more presence in. And then X-Men 97 3 comes out, which is bridging the 92 to 97 series. So So we'll see Fall of House of X5, see how Duggan ends his side of the crossover. Well, I mean, he still has pages in X-Men 35, but still. How we gonna end Fall, and, um, and ideally Magic and Kate Pride will be in that. But everyone, that is the episode. Thank you so much for listening. You can follow me on Twitter at JackalSII. You can follow me on YouTube, where I'm continuing to make my Midnight Suns videos. Also at JackalSII. Thank you so much to Walker D World for providing the instrumental music. Um, you can follow the podcast at or at SNFWM on Instagram and Twitter. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. And I will talk to you next time. All right, everyone. Bye.